Never laugh at a dancing dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC, when I see people going "aww" at videos of little puppies and kittens, I tend to wonder how cute those animals might seem to the viewer if they were larger than humans, or if humans were the size of rodents. We think a cat is cute because we're bigger than it is. The word cute isn't used too often to describe a lion or a cheetah or a wolf or a coyote or a jackal. That's because those animals are large enough to be a threat to human beings. When I was young and strong and felt invulnerable, I had the privilege of observing an actual North American dogman in an unguarded moment when he didn't know I was watching. I got to see him be vulnerable and silly, but that's not something that a human being is supposed to ever see. And for that glimpse into the private time of a dogman, I nearly paid the price with my own life. Now that's taking pay-per-view to an extreme. This happened some years ago, and I don't really know exactly where I was in modern terms, as I did not have GPS on me. I do know that I was hiking alone in the winter in the Huron-Manistee National Forests in Cadillac, Michigan. I would not suggest hiking alone in any season, but especially not in winter. I had just broken up with a girlfriend, or she had just broken up with me, and to my young self, this seemed like the end of the world. Of course, now that I am middle-aged, I wish I could trade places with the younger version of myself. I would be single, and I would be living back in a much more free and fair time to be alive. I tell you, if they figured out how to open up vacation tours to the past, it would be the top-selling thing in tourism instantly. The only problem would be that they would have to force people to come back to the present. Nobody would willingly come back to 2022, even if you paid them money. If I knew my grandchildren would be brought up in this world, I don't think I'd have had kids in the first place. Forgive me, I'm having a senior moment, and I'm not 70 yet. This story is supposed to be about a terrible thing that happened to me, but even the terrible things from back then were better than the best of our modern age. We've allowed the evil to win. Now the dogman, he was scary, and he nearly ended my life, but I didn't think he was evil. I thought he was a vicious and savage wild animal, and I thought I was stupid to get so close to him. I was lucky to have survived that day, I suppose, if it's actually lucky to be alive. I watch the news and I'm not really sure anymore. So there I was, back in my 20s. I had just experienced my first major heartbreak in my life, and I was hiking through snow in the winter. It focused me on survival, and I kept my mind off how sad I was. And then one day as I was hiking, it began to snow. The sky was absolutely white, and it looked like the snow was just going to get worse and worse. So I started to look around in the woods for a place that I might set up my tent to wait out the snowstorm. I heard someone moving around, or what I thought was someone. Peeking through branches, I saw something I will never forget if I live to be 200. I saw a very large dog, literally dancing around, jumping up and down, and catching snowflakes on its tongue. It looked like a kid in the way it was acting, but the creature was the largest dog I'd ever seen. It was not a wolf, so I assumed it belonged to someone. It was brown. It had a big, floppy-eared, short-snouted face, and the way it romped around, you'd have thought it never saw snow before in its life. I want to be clear that at first, the canine looked and acted exactly as such. A canine. It was not up on its hind legs at first, but looked like a very large house pet. It was so cute and so sweet, and my life had been lacking in cuteness and sweetness for some time. I felt almost intoxicated watching how much fun the dog was having, and at first when it stood up on its hind legs to catch snow on its tongue, I didn't register that anything strange or different might be happening. I've seen other dogs do that in the past when they got excited. Stand up on their hind legs, I mean. This one seemed a lot more natural, moving around bipedally, although, as I mentioned, I did not really register that fact at first. So the big dog was taller than I was when it stood up, but this did not scare me, since I really thought I was looking at somebody's tame house pet. It jumped, and it danced, trying to catch all the biggest snowflakes, and then it tried a maneuver that turned quite clumsy midway through. Misjudging its step or slipping on something out there, the Dogman took a tumble and ended up sitting on the ground in a very awkward position. It was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen, and for the first time in weeks, I laughed out loud. Immediately, I could see that this was a mistake. The goofy canine turned rigid in a second, flipping its body around into a battle position in a move both graceful and militaristic at the same time. It was whining and baring its teeth, preparing itself for battle, while its eyes still scanned the ground in front of it, searching for whoever or whatever it had just heard laughing at it. The speed and alarm with which the beast reacted to my little chuckle left me somewhat stunned, and I remember gasping and turning around to get myself out of there before something bad happened. I turned over my shoulder to look back, and I saw that something bad had already happened. The Dogman, because let's face it, that's what this had to be, was well over 20 feet away from me when I turned to leave. But before I took 2 steps, I was spun around and backed up against a wide tree. I could feel the Dogman's bodily warmth in front of me. I could smell his dead rabbit dog breath, and I was watching the vermin crawl through the fur on his head as his gritted teeth were pressed hard into my exposed neck. Did I mention that I was backed up against a tree? Well, I was backed up against a tree, and I was in the most vulnerable position I hope to ever be in. He was bent down to my height, touching his nose leather and teeth ever so lightly against my bare flesh. He knew that was all he had to do in order to hold me perfectly still and observe my reaction. The creature was able to view my face, and he seemed to be looking for something, although I don't know what. I tried to look in his eyes, but each time I did, I felt like some kind of invisible something was firing a hot, negative energy into my eyes, like a dry heat, I guess you could say. I wanted to run away, but the tree behind me was wide, and the bipedal canine in front of me was also. This cute dog, the cutest adult dog I think I'd ever seen, was about to eat my neck while I was still alive. So, why did I not die on that day? Sheer chance, really. If I were a writer writing this story, I'd call it Deus Ex Machina, and a cheap cheat to get out of me getting eaten alive. I didn't do anything clever to escape the Dogman. I didn't outsmart him, and I don't have any advice to pass on to you if something like this ever happens in your life. I got rescued. I got rescued by a party of 4 who were hiking through the region and saw my predicament. They approached, shouting, and the Dogman dropped to all 4s and ran away. The chances of anyone being in the snow where I was were infinitesimally small. They were also looking for a place to camp as I had been, and so they were there when I needed them the most. After we built a camp together, I found out that they were 2 couples, one traditional old school, and the other 2 were a gay male couple, each of them a great woodsman in his own right. I felt a lot safer with them than I had alone, and ended up hiking with those 4 for another few days until we all returned to civilization. I kept in touch with the lone female in the group, and she later married me and bore our children. So, you might say Dogman introduced me to my eventual wife. I mean, we were just friends for over a year before romance bloomed, and it was a surprise for both of us when it did, but technically, we did meet because of the Dogman. I don't want to sound like an old hippie or anything, but if the Dogman had not threatened me like that, growling and with its teeth pressed to my bare neck, I would never have met my wife or had my children. At the very least, I would have had different kids with someone else. My grandchildren wouldn't be who they are, if not for the Dogman either. And going back further, if my previous girlfriend hadn't dumped me so hard, I wouldn't have even been in those woods watching that big Dogman catching the snowflakes on his tongue in the first place. It just blows my mind the way one thing leads to the next in life. Being dropped by your lover leads to a Dogman sighting, which leads to getting married, and 2 generations of descendants being born with my last name. So even though it did turn out well for me, I suppose, I still would tell you that it might be wise to avoid such a life-threatening situation in the first place. Maybe I would have met my wife and her camping buddies anyway, even if the Dogman hadn't been there. I know that even though it led to my entire family and life happening the way it did, if I had it to live over, I think I'd give that big Dogman a lot more space. In fact, the only lesson I would derive from this and want to pass on to you would be: never laugh at a dancing Dogman. Nicholas Carroll. Why, that guy's more fun than a barrel. Please join me in thanking Nicholas Carroll for making this episode possible. In exchange, he gets to see our weekly secret uncensored Dogman stories, and so can you. Here's international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to give you the deets. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com, and that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.